So what can I say about yesterday? It was a great day. It started out with snow, and it provided me the opportunity to get on my computer and execute a project that I had been manifesting over many months since my return from Jamaica. I knew there was a signal that I was receiving, and if you're a person that journals like I do, you understand that, there's times a day where you get messages from source, and executing on these ideas is as simple as putting pen to paper. And I did that a number of times while I was in Jamaica. Top Hill specifically, I had some morning pages that was asking me to observe as much as I could while I was there. There was no actions that I took while I was in Jamaica that weren't directed by somebody else's need. And I was on a chainsaw gang, and I shoveled a lot in Montego Bay and down at Parity. I was cleaning up kitchen and moving sand because all the sea rushed in down there, and driving in Jamaica, crossing between those 2 points, and further traveling to Kingston and walking the streets of the Kingston marketplace and seeing the energy of this land of Jamaica, cruising downtown Montego Bay with Russ, Actor Black, and, going for soup in this Rastafarian kitchen. I was able to observe the cultural distinction that they maintain there. They have cultural values that are so strong, and I appreciate I and understanding and knowledge sharing, and it all culminated into this idea of civic engagement and cultural awareness. How do I articulate that as respectfully as possible? And keeping acts of public observation known is the acronym that I came up. KEPOC was a GPT search of this one great tree that stood amongst all the destruction. The cottonwood tree as another name, KEPOC. And I was like, what could that mean in this context of civic engagement and cultural knowledge? And that's it, keeping acts of public observation known. And what I recognized and observed and, really digested and carried home with me here to Toronto is that there's a voice of the diaspora, and, working through Can Jam Relief, seeing, the response to our fundraising efforts and the challenges at the ports, and seeing the streets of Black River washed out, destroyed, my mom's church, the bus station where I stood as a youth, gone. It still hurts, But what I started to build months ago was a survey system. Let's look at the different points of inference that allows us to make clear the difference between the seaside resort and the middle of the country, where you cross through and the roads are zigzag up down, taxi man trying to kill you all the time. But I came up with 26 points civically and 25 points culturally that I think people's observations across the country, not just parish, but every kilometer squared, people can actively navigate their own communities and start the conversation of civic responsibility and civic engagement, like actually make your observation known. So we have a resource that we can share across the island. It blew my mind while I was in Kingston traveling around, went for lunch at the Devon place, big famous old place, and they had an ice cream shop there. The girls went there, and I went to the restaurant where I could have a burger because I ain't eaten beef in a while. At that point, it was a whole lot of chicken, but grateful for chicken, grateful for Chef over at the Music Mansion sustaining us, and how different the lived reality of Hurricane Melissa was between Montego Bay, Black River, Parity, Top Hill, all across St. Elizabeth to Kingston, and how blissfully unaware most people were about the devastation on the other side of the island. And like, why don't they communicate? Why don't they know? Why don't they know when to show up? And this deep need to respond and be aware and find a way to participate comes from my time in Japan. It was 2011. This is tattoo here. The shaken not stirred. I was one of the lucky people to visit Japan for the first time. And the next morning, a 9.0 earthquake hits, and a tsunami washes out the train tracks of a path that I just traveled. And a nuclear explosion, let's add that. I think there was a volcano eruption, and to see how the people snapped to task, nobody asked. They just moved to where they were supposed to be to show up for their community. And I think that's what CAPOC will provide for Jamaica, is actually painting the map of need, like real visceral need in so many communities, that people could respond, people could organize if they had all the information. We get feedback, and that allows us to make adjustments. And a lot of complaining and ray chat about this and that, how bad it is, can be shifted quickly, converted, restored into something light and bright, like what can I do? What can I step up? How do I show up for my neighbor? What does God say about this? What's the good orderly direction towards a solution, towards restoration, towards the sanctity and sanity of family and community? How do we do that? So I did that yesterday. I'm grateful to Replit for having a 10th anniversary and making the agent free so I could stay locked in and not worry about the money. It's not expensive to use Replit, but at the same time, I was making some major moves, and I hope you'll check out the web app that I've developed. It is still just, we'll call it the third draft right now. There's a lot of tweaks, but I made a large leap yesterday to fulfill this destiny of creating community with the Jamaican diaspora, and I hope to reach there in June. I will go back to Jamaica this summer for the Jamaica Diaspora Conference and present this idea. Will it be well received between now and then? Will we get many responses? I don't know, but I built it now to see if you come. CAPOC by Spike on Instagram, and the link will be in the description, and it's also on our Instagram profile. Check it out, and thank you.